The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
We are those guys. We hope to be your guys, bringing you the latest around the National Football League. I'm Alex Hardy, joined as always by our former 10-year safety in the National Football League, Nick Ferguson. The preseason has come and gone, roster cuts as we speak, and something happening in Jerry World, which we'll get into shortly here. But first, how's it going, my man?
It's going well, man. Now the preseason is over. Now we get a chance to see what teams look like in the regular season. And oh, by the way, we know what the rules are. Usually there are teams that don't perform well in preseason that get off to a great start. And then there are others who start great in the preseason and the start of the season is very subpar. So don't get too high, don't get too low, but the regular season is right around the corner.
Well, we can get into the only team that didn't throw a touchdown pass during the entire preseason. Nick, you want to guess?
Your Patriots.
That would be the New York Giants. Somebody worse than my New England Patriots. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, you compare that to this time a year ago, the preseason QB rating leader was Kenny Pickett. So how the race sometimes fall, or those who, to quote a line from the replacements, not even a has-been, Nick. You're a never was. Nick Ferguson, I'm going to get into what the Dallas Cowboys have done, which, believe it or not, for a change, is something. We have a 4-year, $136 million contract extension, and here's the important number, $67 million guaranteed at signing for CeeDee Lamb, last year's NFL receiving leader. So, Nick, we've got one of the big pillars done in Dallas. Jerry Jones said he wasn't going to worry, but now you have a guy who was holding out, and now we're 2 weeks from the start of the season. Do you expect a happy, content CeeDee Lamb? Is this more about what happens for Dak Prescott next, or your thoughts on a big contract being handed out to one of the best players in the NFL last year?
Well, Alex, let's just look at it this way. It's been the offseason of the wide receivers, and I'm going to choose all the above for 500 as it pertains to the Dallas Cowboys because, yes, does it mean something for Dak Prescott? And it does, because what Jerry is saying, look, we rather go with the wide receiver and pay CeeDee Lamb opposed to giving you your money, Dak Prescott. Now, things could change, but it seemed like everything is moving towards Dak playing out his contract and possibly being someone else. But when you look at CeeDee Lamb, he is going to be happy. A holdout has never yielded these types of results where a wide receiver is making more or on the level of quarterbacks. Unreal. And if you are Jamar Chase, all you're doing is Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. Excellent. You just can't wait. And if you are Brenda Kradolfer, you're just sitting back with your feet up, probably smoking a stogie, saying, you know what? My time is coming, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan. Put the money in the bag.
Those are your guys there in San Francisco, Nick. And again, you have to give credit to CeeDee Lamb for holding out, I'd put it, because he did ultimately get what he was looking for. And furthermore, for everyone criticizing, Jones just got this deal done 6 months ago, before Justin Jefferson, before all these other guys, Amon-Ra St. Brown. But it takes two to tango. So if CeeDee purposefully waited for the market to kind of shake out, he's the one now looking mighty fine, knowing that his future is cemented in Dallas. Meanwhile, only there for 4 more years, so he could hit the market once again. Nick, we're talking about these Dallas Cowboys, and each episode we get to preview an NFL team that we believe can be a contender, kind of some highlights from the previous season, what to expect for 2024, as the regular season is just around the corner. And what we'd like to do here on Ride the Wave Media is bring on our compadres, those of us here on the network with their own podcast, so we can share and promote and create content with each other. So to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, we have a Cowboys fan with us. We're joined now by Brenda Kradolfer, who you can find right here on Ride the Wave Media, the host of the Restored Wife podcast. She is a Laura Boyle certified relationship coach. And I think more so than just digging into the Dallas Cowboys themselves, I think the relationship that it is for Dallas Cowboy fans is something that we really need to sit down on the proverbial couch and dig through some of the scar tissue. Brenda, thank you so much for joining us. And how are you doing? Welcome to Those Guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing awesome. So glad to be here.
So, Nick, when you talk about the Dallas Cowboys, they won 12 games 3 years in a row. What expectations do you have, or should I say, is 12 wins and the lack of playoff success enough as far as you're concerned?
Well, a lack of playoff success, no, not for this organization and this fan base. Since we're talking to Brendan, we're talking about relationships. When I look at the Dallas Cowboys, it's almost like a love of scorn. Like your lover goes out and cheats on you all the time. And to make up for it, they come back with these gifts. And these gifts are playoffs. These gifts are guys with hefty contracts. Look at what I've done for you. Meanwhile, you still walk away with the same level of disappointment several months later because they're going to break your heart. And it's unfortunate because I don't really blame the players. And Brenda, you tell me, I don't really blame the players. See, I blame management. See, the management is not doing a great job as far as getting a bunch of players. And Alex, you mentioned this, so I'll bring it up. Jerry could have gotten this deal done earlier before with Justin Jefferson's, but guess what? He's Jerry Jones, and he's been known to be a very stubborn negotiator. So he put himself in this tough situation because CeeDee got his money. What about Micah? What about Dak? I mean, no Dak, you were in trouble. And you may be holding out for Shedeur Sanders, but you're still going to be in trouble nonetheless.
Brenda, can you talk about a relationship where a fan may give their time, their money if they buy a new jersey, or just their mental capacity, and for a Dallas Cowboys team that has virtually given them nothing in return? It's been 30 years almost, 1995, since the Cowboys were last in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they have loyal fans. They've got a loyal fan base that have just stuck around, right? And they're holding out.
I'm
people.
Yeah. I just when one-sided relationship gives, I don't know if there's anything to expect in return. Kind of navigating, giving what's really unconditional love and support for a football team. Does that compare to kind of a relationship in a way?
Sure. I think there's lots of relationships that can look one-sided, but it's so nuanced. There's so much going on. There's so much at play. Just like Nick mentioned, you've got management involved, you got the fans involved, you got the media involved, you've got players, and you've got new players coming on, and there's just a lot at play. And the same thing is with any relationship too. It's like I know these Dallas Cowboy fans, they're strong fans. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be there for the next 30 years too. And really just, they're not going anywhere, but what are the Cowboys going to do to really give back at this point? And it sounds like they're on their way potentially.
See, there's that word again. See, potential. See, potential is a very dirty word in the realm of sports because we always hear that tossed around. This guy has potential. This guy has potential. But at some point, you have to elevate your play where you supersede that potential. And I know right now, the Cowboys fans invested because where else are they going to go? Right? They have nowhere else to go. They've been diehard fans forever. Jerry Jones isn't going anywhere. So now you are trapped in a relationship. You can't get out. It's like the Cowboys fans live in a glass house. And if you drive by and you look at them, they scratches all over the glass because they're trying to get out, but they can't.
Yeah.
Is that just the name of the Cowboys brand? I don't know how you can turn the tables on someone who's been wielding so much power in this unhealthy relationship. I'm wondering stop going to games, stop buying jerseys? Do you give the cold shoulder? Is there a better way of trying to talk and work through issues together? You watch the games and you lower the bar a little bit. How do you provide some self-care when maybe you're not getting that from your partner? In this the case, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, well, number one, our self-care is our responsibility. Our happiness is our responsibility. So I had to learn that. That was a hard lesson for me to learn in my own relationship, that my partner wasn't going to be the one to make me happy. He could add to it for sure, but if I was miserable, I was choosing that. And so yeah, I don't know if you got to take care of number one first. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that in a make sure you're good, right? And I don't think any of these fans are gonna, do anything crazy when their team isn't doing so hot. But I don't think they're going anywhere either. I think they're really just dedicated, and I think it's part of that culture too, that Texas pride. Like, and I'm not even from Texas, and I was just telling Alex earlier, like, I'm a fan because growing up, my family were just literal cowboys. They were farmers, they were ranchers, they had cattle, they rode horses. And so they just gravitated towards the team. And so, I just followed along, and that's how I became a fan in my younger years of the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm just in the full transparency here. So I grew up in Miami, and everyone in my family, they are diehard Miami Dolphins fans. And as I was growing up, this is kind of when I felt as though I was coming into my own as a man. I separated from the family. Why? Because I got sick and tired of watching the Dolphins lose. They start off 8-0. They play a team in Buffalo and Jim Kelly. Then all of a sudden they tank. And I'm like, no, I'm sick and tired of doing this to myself every single year. I'm going to high school pissed off because the Dolphins lost on Sunday. I was like, you know what? It's time for a divorce. And right then in high school, I divorced the Miami Dolphins. They're not going to do it to me. So the Cowboys fans, they do have choices. There's 31 other teams that they can root for. Or you can say, you know what? I'm not going to root for a team. I'm just going to root for an individual on a team. I mean, it's okay to divorce your team. And listen, I'm all for people forming relationships and stay together. But if you're in a toxic relationship, at some point, like you said, I mean, you got to be a little selfish and think about self-care and divorce that team. That's what the D in Dallas stand for, divorce.
Well, that's hard to do when it's tied to your occupation, right? When they introduced the Dallas podcasters, I don't think any of us could ever not root for that team because that's what we do. But I think that is such a fascinating way to identify with a certain team, and the way that they play maybe reflects the hard work and blue collar nature that a literal cowboy would be doing. So, of all the stories, Nick, where you hear how a fan comes to you and tells you why they're a fan of your play or football in general, where does that rank that you are a cowboy, you're a Cowboy fan?
Well, I'm going to push this off on the media, right? I know that sounds, right up the alley. Oh, I just blame the media that they're the culprits for everything. But it is true. Growing up in Miami, I knew individuals who became Dallas Cowboys fans. Why? Because that's all they saw on television. And oh, by the way, the tagline was America's team. And everyone wants to be patriotic, right? I mean, you see me wearing kind of red, white, and blue now. So kids wanted to be patriotic. The star on the helmet, Tom Landry, right? All those guys, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman. So they became Dallas Cowboys fans. And this is why it's a little difficult for the Cowboys fans to break away from it, because it's the brand. You buy into a brand. This is why fandom is so real. This is why fans cheer. This is why they buy the jerseys. Even when teams suck, they still go to the games because fandom is a real thing, and that brand is embedded in them because it happens to us early on. You're 4 years old, your dad sits here in front of the television, you're watching the game, and then you cozying it up to him, and it's so nostalgic. So when you grow up, you want that same feel with your kids, so you do the same thing to them. Hopefully, you're rooting for a winning team and not a team that have been known to cheat like the Patriots. I mean, that's something I heard. I don't know how true it is, but that's something I heard.
Nick, it's a good reminder for Brenda and for any of the other Ride the Wave media listeners that have not found our Apple TV rewatch series of the Patriots dynasty. We talk about all of it. So by no means, Nick, do you need to be digging up skeletons here and talking about things that I thought were properly addressed, which you could find right here on the podcasts or YouTube feeds, some of our earlier episodes here on those guys. And Nick, you mentioned about that brand, and Brenda, I thought this was fascinating because another way to access the Dallas Cowboys has nothing to do with football. And it was actually a conversation I had with my wife because she watched on Netflix America's Sweethearts about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, then being an extension of the star on the side of the helmet. So I know, Brenda, like watching professional cheerleaders kind of in that make and mold of the Dallas Cowboys image, is that something that, you know, as a relationship coach, was that something that you saw that looked healthy on the outside, or kind of the approach to that work and life balance?
Ooh, I'm not sure if I understand the question, Alex.
I just, when you're watching it, it doesn't seem real. It's people there to do a job, but they really are just the face of the Dallas Cowboys. I was curious kind of what you saw, you know, from that Netflix series.
Yeah, we talked about that. And I think it goes to Nick's point. Like, this is a machine. This is a product, right? And they've pushed it for a long time. And I think they've done a really good job. And again, like calling those cheerleaders America's sweethearts. They're not just, you know, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. They're America's cheerleaders. Watching that series it's eye-opening. But one thing that I really saw in that was that they are creating a product. And if you don't fit that product for whatever reason, it could be, you know, nothing to do with who you are, how talented you are. If you don't fit the product, you're not going to be one of America's sweethearts. And there's not a thing you can do about it because they do have such strong branding and such a strong, you know, historical media presence, as Nick was saying. And they've carried it on, and they've continued to build on that, off of that.
So
Nick,
I'll say this, Alex, really quickly, because
please.
when you think about the Dallas Cowboys and some of the other teams, and it's interesting that we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys because it is one of the most, I guess, recognizable teams in professional sports. I think right now I think Jerry Jones, I think they rank number one in the NFL as far as the franchise value. They may be number one. It was 7-9 billion or something like that.
Too many zeros.
Yeah, it's too many zeros to count, but it goes back to, okay, what is a fan's relationship with a team? Everyone wants to be associated with a winner. You mentioned that the team hasn't been relevant since 1995, almost 30 years. That's a long time. I mean, while you're going to have a group of fans continue to cheer for the Dallas Cowboys because, once again, they're associated with nostalgia with their grandfather, their father, whomever. But it does come a point where you start to look around and notice that you're kind of all alone at the bottom with the New York Giants, and you don't want to be there. So what other options do you have? And I just go back to what Brenda said earlier. I mean, self-care is so important. Well, you got to start thinking about you, because I know I'm not the only person when I was rooting for a particular organization that went to school or work angry that next day because they didn't perform well. I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, I'm a fan, but I didn't play. They're not paying me. So why the hell I'm upset? So that's where the Dallas Cowboys fans need to be. Celebrate the fact that CeeDee Lamb signed a massive contract. Hope that you can keep the group together. But at some point, you got to make some tough decisions. How long do you want to continue to put yourself through this emotional roller coaster?
That's what the Dallas Cowboys always will be, an emotional roller coaster. You have so many high highs and low lows with playoff disappointments year after year, 29 going on 30 years. He's Nick Ferguson. I'm Alex Hardy, and joined again Brenda Kradolfer. You can find her on the Restored Wife podcast. She is a Laura Boyle certified relationship coach, and day by day, we're getting better at managing our relationships as NFL fans with our teams, some of whom deliver, those like the Dallas Cowboys. It's been a long time. The last item that we have here for those guys, typically this is Nick before we split, because Brenda, you are our guest. Brenda, before we split, in any way you'd like to connect with our audience, anything you'd want to promote for Restored Wife, or anything you have going on right now within Daybreak or Ride the Wave Media before we get on out of here?
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I'm leaving with this question of like, what are we not seeing? Like, what is underneath the surface of this team? What is still there that was there in the past that maybe even organization has forgot about? So that's the question that I'm leaving with here today. And as far as what I'm doing, I am putting on a workshop. It's called the Empowered Wife Workshop. And I help women become ridiculously happy wives, no matter their circumstances. And I would love to connect with whoever is just either in a really tough spot in their relationship, or things are pretty good and they just want them to be like the best that they can be. So you can find me at the Restored Wife podcast, and also on social media at Brenda Kradolfer and the Restored Wife podcast on Instagram.
She's Brenda Kradolfer. Nick, anything to say to the people before we head on out of here?
Yeah, just because you are from a region or area of these United States doesn't necessarily mean that you have to continue with the family tradition of rooting for a loser. I too was in that program, but I got myself out. You can too as well.
I'm Nick Ferguson, and I have a problem, but I don't have one anymore.
No, I don't, and I approve this message.
Thanks, everyone.